My name is Michael James Walker, but everyone calls me Mike. Fate decreed that I should become the sole heir of my eccentric Uncle Henry, who passed away 3 months ago, leaving me a small farm in the remote village of Winterville in the English countryside. I had never visited England before. I'm from Chicago, a city of lights, noise, and constant motion. But the inheritance papers were real, and the lawyer confirmed that I had to visit the property in person to receive the official documents. I rented a car in London and began my journey north. With every mile, civilization receded, replaced by green hills and winding roads. By evening, I arrived at the village where my uncle had lived, or what remained of it. Winterville was hardly a village in the true sense. It was a cluster of crumbling stone houses centered around a small church with a leaning tower. I saw no residents, neither in the fields nor on the roads. The silence was terrifying, broken only by the wind howling through the cracks in the stone. The farm lay on the outskirts of the village, a 2-story stone house with a dilapidated barn. The key the lawyer had given me opened the door with a horrifying creak. Inside, the place was filled with dusty old furniture, tattered curtains, and the smell of mold and dampness. In the main room, I found a photograph of Uncle Henry, a thin man with deep eyes that seemed to follow me wherever I moved. I decided to stay for just 2 nights, then return to London. After unpacking in the upstairs bedroom, I went out to explore the village before dark. The sun was setting, painting the stone buildings an unpleasant shade of orange. The small cemetery beside the church was my first stop. The gravestones were old, some dating back to the 17th century, but what filled me with dread was the large number of headstones bearing the same date of death, October 31st, 1888. Dozens of people had died on the same day. I tried to read the inscriptions, but the long shadows made them hard to see. The night of the Great Escape. I heard the whisper clearly behind me. I turned quickly, but there was no one there, only the wind stirring dry leaves. I decided to head back to the house, but I realized I was lost. The village looked different in the twilight. The winding paths were no longer familiar. I tried to remember the way I had come, but all the buildings looked the same. Then I saw it for the first time. At the end of the alley stood a human-shaped silhouette, tall and unnaturally thin, wearing old-fashioned clothes. I couldn't make out its features in the dim light, but I felt it watching me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it moved away with unnatural speed, as if gliding over the ground rather than walking on it. I ran in the opposite direction, my heart pounding. At last I reached the house, rushed inside, and slammed the door shut, leaning against it to catch my breath. Darkness had fully fallen now. There was no electricity, only a flashlight and an old oil lamp I found on the table. I lit the oil lamp and began examining the papers my uncle had left on the desk. There was an old map of the village with strange symbols marked on certain houses. In a worn notebook, I found writing in my uncle's shaky hand. "They do not forgive. They wait. The night of the Great Escape repeats every year. They must find a body to rest in." I didn't understand, but a chill ran through my bones. I lifted my eyes from the notebook and saw a pale face staring at me through the window. Empty black eyes and an open mouth as if frozen in a silent scream. I screamed and staggered backward. When I looked again, the face was gone. I decided to stay upstairs until morning. I dragged a chair under the doorknob and sat on the bed, shaking. The hours crawled by. Every small sound, the scurrying of mice, the creaking of wood, the wind, made me jump. Near midnight, I heard singing. At first it was a faint whisper, then it grew clearer. Women's and children's voices singing a mournful hymn in a language I didn't recognize. I slipped out from under the covers and cautiously approached the window. In the village's main street, I saw them. Dozens of ghosts, men, women, and children, wearing 19th century clothing, marching in a procession toward the church. They were translucent, glowing with a faint light, their faces empty and sorrowful. They disappeared into the church, and silence returned once more. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to leave immediately. I ran downstairs, grabbed my bag, and opened the door to flee to my car. But the car wouldn't start. I tried again and again, but the engine refused to respond. The battery was completely dead, even though it had been perfectly fine just hours earlier. In desperation, I decided to leave on foot. The village was miles away from the nearest town, but anything was better than staying here. I began walking along the dirt road I had arrived on, my flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. After 10 minutes, I looked back to make sure I was moving away from the village. But there it was again. the entire village standing before me, as if I hadn't moved at all. I looked ahead, then back again. In both directions, Winterville was waiting. I tried turning left toward the fields, but after minutes of walking, I found myself once more in front of my uncle's house. I was trapped. "You are one of us now." The whisper came from all around, as if the wind itself were speaking. I returned to the house and locked the door. I knew now that escape was impossible. I sat on the worn chair in the main room, my head in my hands. What was happening? Why was I here? Why had my uncle chosen me for this fate? Then I remembered the notebook. I picked it up again and read more carefully. On the night of October 31st, 1888, a tragedy occurred in Winterville. Father Jerome, a priest who believed in black magic, decided to offer the entire village as a sacrifice to ancient gods in exchange for immortality. He poisoned the main well with a mixture of toxic herbs, causing the death of all the villagers in a single night. But the evil spirit he summoned did not grant him immortality. Instead, it trapped the souls of all the villagers in this place, forcing them to try to escape every year on the anniversary of their deaths. But escape requires a living body. Each year, on the night of October 31st, they attempt to possess any stranger in the village, taking over the body and leaving their own spirit behind. I looked at the calendar on the wall. The date was October 30th. Tomorrow night was the night of the Great Escape. The voice I had heard in the cemetery had been a warning, or perhaps the countdown to my fate. I decided to fight. If my uncle had lived here for years, he must have found a way to survive. I began searching the house methodically, every corner, every cupboard, every floorboard. And in the attic, I found what I was looking for. In a wooden box beneath a loose floorboard were several ancient manuscripts and books, along with a letter addressed to me. "Dear Mike, if you are reading this, it means I am dead, and you are in Winterville at a dangerous time. I am sorry for bringing you here, but you were the only one who could complete the task. I spent years trying to free these souls, and I discovered that the only way is to destroy the source that binds them here, the mummified body of Father Jerome in the church crypt. Look for the stone coffin beneath the altar. Destroy the body and the souls will be freed. But be careful, he still retains his power. God bless you." Inside the box were an old silver cross, a vial labeled holy water, and a dagger engraved with strange symbols. I looked out the window. Dawn was approaching. I had one day to prepare. I spent the day exploring the village in daylight, avoiding looking at windows where I felt eyes watching me. The church was abandoned and crumbling. The wooden altar was large and heavy. Searching for a way to move it, I found a metal ring hidden in the floor behind it. When I pulled the ring, the altar slid aside with surprising ease, revealing a stone staircase leading downward. The stench of decay and death rose from below. Gripping my flashlight and the dagger, I began to descend. The crypt was damp and dark. In its center stood a stone coffin covered in demonic symbols. I tried to push the lid, but it was too heavy. Using the dagger as a lever, I strained until the stone lid shifted with a terrifying grinding sound. Inside lay a well-preserved mummified body, dressed in a black priest's robe. Its eyes were open, glassy, and fixed on me. I raised the dagger, ready to strike. Then the body opened its mouth. At last, a new body. A hoarse voice emerged from the corpse. The body leapt from the coffin with unnatural speed. Its eyes now burned with red sparks, and its long fingers reached for me. I stumbled back and splashed holy water onto it. The body screamed horribly as the smoke rose where the water touched it. "You cannot stop me. I am immortal," Father Jerome shouted. I tried to flee up the stairs, but he grabbed my arm with unbelievable strength. His touch was ice cold. I turned and stabbed him in the chest with the dagger. He screamed again, but did not release me. I felt a freezing cold seep into my body as if something were trying to enter me. Then I heard the voices. The whispers from the village were now clear and loud. "Free us, free us, free us." It was the spirits of the villagers trying to help me. A strange energy filled me. I grabbed the silver cross and pressed it to the corpse's forehead. Father Jerome let out a deafening scream and recoiled. Holding the cross in place, I raised the dagger again and plunged it into his heart. The body exploded into dust, and the crypt filled with blinding light. I heard voices thanking me. Then silence. Exhausted, I climbed back up into the church. Night had fallen again. I stepped outside to find the village changed. The ghosts no longer appeared, but the buildings looked far more decayed, as if centuries of neglect had collapsed into a single moment. Then I saw them. At the edges of the village stood dozens of translucent figures, but this time their faces were smiling. One by one, they vanished, waving goodbye. The last to disappear was a man who looked like Uncle Henry. He nodded to me in gratitude, then faded away. I returned to the house and waited for dawn. This time, when I tried to start the car, it started immediately. Before leaving, I went inside to take my uncle's photograph. He looked at me with warm eyes and a sad smile. I left Winterville and will never return. But on some nights, when the moon is full and the wind howls, I hear faint whispers of thanks. And I know I left a part of myself into that village, and a part of them will stay with me forever. Now, every year, on the night of October 31st, I light a candle in my window and let it burn until morning. And sometimes, in the corner of the room, I see a shadow pass quickly, or hear a whispered, "Thank you," reminding me that not all ghosts are evil. Some are simply searching for the peace they deserve. Winterville is no longer haunted, but its memory will haunt me forever.